Welcome back, football fans. Today, I am super excited. I have JetsCentral on the channel to be doing our first installment. We're going to be doing this probably weekly, where we do the top 10 at each specific position in the NFL. And this week, my subscribers voted on the top 10 quarterbacks for next year. This list is specifically just for the 2019 season. It's not for the next 10 years. Next year, our top 10 quarterbacks. JC, what's going on, my man? I want to thank you for coming on the channel. And are you ready to go?
Chris, of course I'm ready to go. Wanted to thank you and just wanted to wish you and everybody watching a happy new year. And also, quick little thing about this list as well. It's based nothing on the past, right? So we're not talking about legacies or Super Bowl wins or anything crazy like that. Just based off of our predictions on the top 10 guys heading into next season.
Let's jump right into it. The way we're going to do it is we're going to go back and forth. We're going to give you our 10 all the way down to 1, and then we're going to have a little debate at the end of which picks we agreed and disagreed with. So I'm going to let you start with your number 10 quarterback. Go ahead.
Yeah, my number 10 guy is Jared Goff, the LA Rams quarterback. Goff is a guy who has extreme accuracy. He plays within the confines of the system. Obviously, he's won a lot of games, and he has the potential to really just master the offensive system that Sean McVay brings to the table. So he's a smart quarterback that's accurate, that knows where to go with the football. So at number 10, it's Jared Goff.
All right, good pick there. I got Deshaun Watson at 10. To me, he is one of the best dual-threat quarterbacks in all of football. He's extremely exciting. He ran for over 550 yards this year. Last year, his only 6 starts before the injury, he was electric. I think he had like 20 touchdowns in his first 6 starts. Big arm quarterback. He's a threat to score from anywhere on the field. And that's why I have him, because of his electricity, because I think he has a very bright future. And I think next year he's going to take an even bigger step forward.
Yeah, fair enough. Who's your number 9 guy?
My number 9 guy, I'm going with a vet. I'm going with a guy that historically I don't like him, because people always compare him to Eli Manning. They were traded for one another, but you got to give the guy credit. He has missed the consistency. Number 9, I have Phillip Rivers. Over his last 11 years, from 2008 to 2018, this guy has thrown between 26 and 32 touchdowns. That is the epitome of consistency. He's never thrown for less than 34, I should say. Never thrown for less than 26 or more than 34 touchdowns. This year, he had a really good year. He threw for 4,300 yards, 32 touchdowns, 12 picks. He had a 105 QB rating. And he's one of probably the 3 or 4 top candidates for the MVP award. So I got to, even though he plays in sunny California, and I always say that helps his stats, I got to give Rivers the nod here as my number 9. I'm curious to see who you got.
Yeah, I actually got Patrick Mahomes, the quarterback for the Chiefs. You know, I know a lot of people, and I see your reaction right now. You're probably like, "Oh, how's this guy number 1 or number 2 with the stats and stuff?" I'm not. I mean, you know me, Chris. You know, I'm not 100% sold on just numbers. But Patrick Mahomes, you know, he really came on the scene this season, shocking a lot of people with his highlight plays and his numbers that he put up, and obviously the wins. I mean, you can't forget about the wins. The reason why he's on, and by the way, number 9, it's yes, it's low.
It's still respectable to have a guy in your top 10 quarterbacks. There was a lot of we forgot to mention the honorable mentions. There was a ton of good quarterbacks we had to leave off this list. For me, Matt Ryan, Baker Mayfield, Matt Stafford, Cam Newton. A lot of big names I left off this list. There's so many good quarterbacks.
Yeah, you're 100% right. So I'm not knocking Patrick Mahomes. I'm the reason why he's at 9 and not at 2 or 1 or anything crazy like that is because I think the supporting cast around Patrick Mahomes is like no other. He has the best weapons in the league, the most weapons in the league, along with Andy Reid. So Patrick Mahomes, great quarterback, ranked number 9 on my list. And just before I hop into the 8th quarterback, few of my honorable mentions: Cam Newton, Matt Ryan, Big Ben Roethlisberger, and then of course Matthew Stafford, as some like to call him Stat Padford. So those are a few of my honorable guys. And who do you got at number 8?
Number 8 is the guy that you had at number 10, Jared Goff, the former number 1 overall pick. He's been a winner the last 2 years. I think his team's won a combined 23 games, I think, in the last 2 years, 11 last year, 12 this year. He got his team a second-round bye. He's thrown 60 touchdowns over the first 2 seasons. Of course, his rookie year, he struggled. A lot of people thought that was a horrible pick, number 1 overall, but he's certainly proven that to be wrong. It is a very favorable system, much like you said with Mahomes. That's why I didn't have Goff higher than where he is. And I think he has limited upside. I think he's very good. That's why I have him at number 8. But I don't think he's ever going to be a top 5 quarterback in this league. That's my honest opinion. But I do like him. I think he's a quarterback that you could certainly win a Super Bowl with. And the Rams are a contender this year. He could easily win one this year. But, I mean, he's been great the last 2 years. So that's why I got him at number 8.
Very good stuff. Yeah, number 8, I got Phillip Rivers, the guy you had at 9. Phillip Rivers, the wily veteran, man. I mean, he's a guy who can, he pushes the ball. He's an ultimate competitor. even though he hasn't had that much success as far as the wins go throughout his career, going into 2019, looking at what he can do, you're just so confident as a coaching staff that he can take you to the promised land. He can push the ball vertically. He can hurt you in like the short, West Coast kind of timing system. He can dump it off to the flat. He's a great leader. Phillip Rivers at spot number 8.
Very good. What about number 7? Who do you like?
Number 7, I got Tom Brady. And people are going to freak out and lose their minds and say,
especially because you're a Jet fan.
Yeah, and they're going to say I'm a hater and this and that. But what are the facts? The facts are Tom Brady's declining. Tom Brady's going to be, 42, 41?
Yeah, 42.
Something crazy like that. How can you sit there and say Tom Brady right now, who has been, at times inaccurate this season, how can you say right now, judging a person on how he can play the quarterback position, how can you say that Brady's a top 3 guy when physically he's just not there? And again, this isn't based off of, history here. I'm not taking in any consideration of what he has done as far as wins go with Belichick. But, some of the positives with Tom Brady is that, he's accurate. Number 1, he plays pretty damn good, in the fourth quarter. As the game goes on, he tends to get better, ultimate competitor, and he's a winner. So Tom Brady at spot number 7.
I mean, it's fair. Number 7, I have a guy that you didn't even have in your top 10. I respect what the guy could do on the field. This year, he actually led the league in interceptions. Ben Roethlisberger threw 34 touchdowns, 18 picks. He's been prone to injury throughout his career. I do think that, and they still had a winning record. This guy never has a losing record his whole career since he's been in the league pretty much, and that's insane to me. He's a 2-time Super Bowl MVP. He's clutch. He is such good – I've never seen a quarterback with such sneaky athleticism. He has such good improvisation skills. He's great at when the play breaks down and creating big plays. And I've always respected – but not so much off the field, but on the field, I've always respected his game. He's a great quarterback. When I think about toughness at the quarterback position, I think about him and I think about Steve McNair. Those are the 2 toughest quarterbacks I've ever seen play this sport, and that's why I have him up there. I still think he has at least 2 years left in the tank, and I think that the Steelers could be back in contention next year with him at quarterback.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like all the quarterbacks that played in the 80s just are so tough. Guys like Jim Kelly and whatnot. But, yeah, good. Fair enough. I mean, I left Roethlisberger off the list because of, the recent news that came out with him and Antonio Brown. Plus, he led the league in picks last season. I just feel as though there are 10 better quarterbacks in the league heading into next season. But, who do you got at number 6?
Number 6 is a guy, comeback player of the year this year, Andrew Luck. What a comeback he made. He had his best year of his career this year. He threw for 39 touchdowns coming off that injury, and they've won 9 out of their last 10 games. And you know how high I am on the Colts, and he's the biggest reason for it. This guy has been money, and finally this team has supported him. Throughout Andrew Luck's entire career, he has had a bad offensive line. He's had no running game. They have finally provided that to him over the last couple of drafts when they've gotten guys like Costanzo, when they've gotten the guy that they drafted from Notre Dame this year, Quentin Nelson. And Marlon Mack has run the ball beautifully the last 8 games down the stretch. And I think Andrew Luck he's got a chance to win a Super Bowl this year. I'm not going to go that far to say it. They're the 6th seed. It would take a miracle. I recognize that. But look out for the Colts. Look out for Andrew Luck. And I think if this guy could stay healthy, he's going to win at least 1 Super Bowl in his career. And that's why I have him at 6. I like Andrew Luck a lot. And I love what he did this year coming back off that injury. He's better than he's ever been. So that's why I have him at number 6.
Yeah, man. I mean, with that description – you sold me on Andrew Luck being number 1 with what you were just saying. But Andrew Luck, he's such a beast. But my number 6 is Jimmy Garoppolo. I look at Jimmy Garoppolo, and he is everything that you want in a quarterback. A quick release. He has the leadership. He has the smarts. He has a strong arm. He has the pocket presence. Everything you want in a quarterback, Jimmy G possesses. You take a look at what he's done with the San Francisco 49ers with absolutely nothing. I mean, can you name – players on the 49ers? I mean, the average football fan,
Yeah, I mean, no. I mean, yeah, you can name some of the guys, but they're, like you said, they're not household names. He doesn't have big weapons. But one thing, I'll wait till the debate discussion of the video before I get into Garoppolo. I recognize what you see in the guy, but go ahead.
Yeah, working with guys like Marquise Goodwin and whatnot, who's like a number 4 on the Buffalo.
Pierre Garcon, another one.
Yeah, I mean, who's just a shell of himself at this point. I mean, he's been around the league forever. But Jimmy Garoppolo has everything you want from the quarterback position. There's just a lot to work with there. He's not going to turn the ball over. His release is so quick, to where he just gets the ball out so fast where defenses can't pick up on it. He moves around the pocket really well. He could extend plays. He's just a winner. And I got Garoppolo at 6.
All right, very fair. Who do you got at 5?
5, I got Carson Wentz, quarterback from the Philadelphia Eagles. This is a guy who has all the upside in the world. Very comparable to Andrew Luck. Wentz has the arm strength, the mobility, the leadership, the toughness. I know you touched on the toughness earlier. It's just the question mark with Carson Wentz is health. Can this guy slide? Is this guy going to come back 100% healthy? If he does, he's a top 5 quarterback in this league. He showed that. The velocity that he could put on the football is like no other. And he doesn't even have the best mechanics either, but yet he's still pinpoint accurate. He doesn't really have a weak spot in his game as far as ball placement goes, like whether it's downfield, intermediate, or in the short passing game. The only time he's really inaccurate is when he doesn't set his feet. But when you look at him on the run, he's amazing. Throwing on bootlegs and whatnot, he's amazing throwing the ball on the run. So Carson Wentz, if he's 100% healthy going into next season, I got him ranked at 5.
Yeah, Carson, I certainly respect Carson Wentz. I don't want people to think because I'm a Giants fan I left him off. That's probably my biggest omission on my top 10 list. The reason I left him off has nothing to do with the skill set. That guy was the MVP 13 weeks through last year, or however long he played, 12, 13 weeks, whatever it was before he got hurt. But the fact of the matter is he's had 2 huge injuries, and that's the only reason why I don't have him in my top 10, because of the injury concerns.
But Deshaun Watson, to play a little devil's advocate, Deshaun Watson, who's in your top 10?
But Deshaun Watson played a full season this year. So we're going into next year. Deshaun Watson's coming up a full 16-game season.
Fair enough. Just saying. 2 big injuries as well.
Yeah. Next guy we got up is, for me, my number 5 is the guy that you had at number 7. And I will be the first to say the only reason he's not number 1, because in my opinion, I hate to say this, he is the greatest quarterback who's ever lived. He's got 5 Super Bowl rings. But I have Tom Brady at number 5. His skills are starting to deteriorate. You could see it. That offense is not what it was. He's still a very good quarterback. 29 touchdowns, 11 picks. He's going to be 42 next year, though. He threw for over 4,300 yards. He's still very good, and he's a guy that I certainly would trust in the playoffs, and I'm not counting out the New England Patriots. I know a lot of people are. They still could easily win the Super Bowl this year, and the guy's been to 7 Super Bowls. So when it matters most, this guy's probably still number 1 in football. But for a whole regular season next year, I would have him at number 5. Because of his age and that he's starting to slow down a little bit. So I would have Brady at number 5 going into next year.
Fair enough. I disagree with some of those points, but we'll move on to spot number 4. Who do you got?
Spot number 4 to me is the quarterback this year that is probably the most overlooked quarterback this year in terms of the MVP race. I think Russell Wilson should be getting serious consideration for the MVP. He's thrown 35 touchdowns, only 7 picks with an atrocious O-line. We all thought they had a horrible O-line coming into the year. He has put this team on his back this year. And he much like Watson, he is a great dual-threat quarterback. He ran for almost 400 yards. He's been fantastic this year. You could argue this has been the best year of his career. And he, much like I said about Rivers, is the epitome of consistency. And that's why I think people don't recognize how great of a year this guy has, because he does it every year. And what I love about this guy most is he's been doubted his whole career. 3rd-round pick out of Wisconsin. People said he couldn't do it because he was 5'10", however tall he is. And the guy always proves the doubters wrong. Russell Wilson, to me, is one of my favorite players in the league, and that's why I got him at number 4 going into next year.
Yeah, he was actually at NC State, before Wisconsin, to kind of back your own, branch off your point that you just made about him being doubted. The NC State coaching staff pretty much said, even though you're a good quarterback, we have a guy named Mike Lennon coming in who's a 4-star at the time, and you're going to compete with him. And Russell Wilson said, I'm not doing that. I'm going to Wisconsin. And, it's just interesting, how things come full circle. But great pick on that. My number 4 guy is Andrew Luck. Look at what Andrew Luck is doing with nothing at wide receiver. I know they have T.Y. Hilton, but look what T.Y. Hilton is without Andrew Luck. I mean, he's just –
Well, how about what he did with Ebron this year, too? Ebron's having by far the best year of his career. He's got 14 touchdowns with Luck as his quarterback.
Andrew Luck is absolutely terrific. It's such a treat to watch him play. He's such a great quarterback. He's never going to do anything off the field controversial. They finally got him an offensive line. When Andrew Luck has protection, I mean, he's making, this wide receiving class, or the wide receiving core for the Colts look like Pro Bowlers. And These guys are probably a bottom 5 wide receiving core in the league. Andrew Luck is absolutely terrific. Him and Frank Reich looks like a match made in heaven.
Yeah, I like you said, I made him sound – I love Andrew Luck. I put him at 6 only because of past injury histories. He's still coming off the injury, so that's still a little scary for me. But to me, he's as good as anybody when he's healthy, or he's right there. But who do you got at number 3?
Number 3, I had the guy that you just were talking about, Russell Wilson. Absolutely tremendous. And, early on in Russell Wilson's career, I was never the biggest fan of him because of I would look at the defense, I would look at the offensive line and the run game. Everything was A+, an A+ secondary, an A+ linebacking core. The defensive line was great. Marshawn Lynch was running at an all-time high. And as those pieces started to go, the only thing that really remained constant was Russell Wilson's play. Now, they don't have an offensive line. They don't really have that deep of a wide receiving core. The defense has lost a lot of pieces. The running game isn't really yes, statistically speaking, they had a pretty solid season, but from the quarterback position, what Russell Wilson brings to the table is just the ultimate ultimate symbol, ultimate version of a professional, what you want a professional quarterback. Does so many good things. And that's why he's my number 3 quarterback heading into next year.
Yeah, he is really converted. When he first started, he was much like an Alex Smith type quarterback, a game manager that when they first won that Super Bowl. But he has really evolved into an alpha. He has evolved into a guy that could put the team on his back, and I just gain more and more respect for him every year.
Yeah, 100% correct.
Yeah, and at number 3, I got Drew Brees, who I think is definitely one of the top 10 quarterbacks to ever play. And this year is arguably his greatest year he's ever had. He was going to win the MVP up until the last 3 weeks of the season before the guy at number 2, I think, took it over. But this man this year threw for a 74% completion percentage, which is the greatest completion percentage for a single season in the history of the league. And you know who held it? Drew Brees the year before when he threw 72%. So this guy just gets better every year. And the fact that they have supported him with that ground game these last 2 years, you have seen him as good as he was, as great as he was before. You have seen him become that much more efficient. He has thrown for only 13 interceptions his last 2 years. Every year before that, throughout his career, he had double-digit interceptions. So he's been in single digits the last 2 years because of that established ground game, and it's made him even that much better. He's had one of the best statistical. Arguably, probably the last 2 years, you could argue he's been one of the top, maybe the best quarterbacks over a 2-year span in the history of the game. That's how good he's been. Of course, the only reason I don't have him at 1 is because he's getting a little older. I mean, he's 40 years old, so that's why I didn't have him at 1. But he's as good as anybody. Yeah.
Totally. Drew Brees is such a beast, such a dominant beast. My number 2 guy, Drew Brees. You pretty much hit the nail right on the head. And it's kind of weird too, because everybody makes a big deal about Tom Brady putting up good numbers.
Oh, well, let's be fair. Let's be fair. Drew Brees. Oh, I thought you meant throughout his career. Okay, you're saying recently. Yeah,
I'm saying Tom Brady. Everybody's saying at 41 years old, it's just unheard of.
Okay.
Unheard of, and nobody else can do it. But in the NFC South, you have a team by the New Orleans Saints, and Drew Brees is absolutely dominating. And he's 1 or 2 years younger, and he's putting up incredible. You can make the argument, like you just said before, that the last 2 seasons were the greatest 2-year stretch of any quarterback in the history of football.
That's how good it's been. And that brings me to my number 2. And I think a reason that you had Mahomes lower was because of the system he plays in and the talent he has. But you can make that same argument for Brees. Sean Payton is a tremendous offensive mind, and that certainly helped Brees' career throughout his career. There's no doubt about it. And I love Drew Brees. But he did have a great coach that set him up with great situations, and I will be the first to say Mahomes has had that. One thing I will say, though, Mahomes definitely has better weapons. Michael Thomas Thomas and Kamara are pretty damn good, but the Chiefs' weapons are a little bit better with Hill, Kelsey, Kareem Hunt before he got suspended. They do have great weapons. Watkins, Mahomes this year, though, an otherworldly season. He's only the second quarterback in the history of football to throw for 5,000 yards and 50 touchdowns in the same year. He has an absolute cannon for an arm. He may have the strongest arm in the sport. He is mobile. He can throw on the run. You could probably give me 1 or 2 guys, but he's up there in terms of arm strength. And he has every tool that you could want in a quarterback. I know that he's young. He's still only played 1 full season. But this guy's the real deal. I love watching him play. He's very fun. And I think he will win some Super Bowls throughout his career. I really believe that. I don't know if he will win it with Andy Reid as the coach because he always seems to choke in the playoffs. But I like Mahomes a lot. I love that offense they got going on over there in Kansas City. So that's why I got Mahomes at 2.
One thing I just want to bring up to kind of just, again, play devil's advocate. Actually, I'll save it to the end. Number 1 guy, Chris, I'll let you take it away. Who do you got?
Okay, my number 1 guy, who else could it be? To me.
Dan Darnold.
To
Next
me,
season, you'll be saying it's Sam Darnold.
I don't think I'll ever be saying number one Sam Darnold. And I like Sam Darnold. I think Sam Darnold might crack the top 10 next year or the year after. I don't think he's ever going to be a number one. Number one to me is Aaron Rodgers. People are saying that this man had a down year this year. He threw 2 interceptions all year. 25 touchdowns, I recognize that's not 50, but 2 interceptions for an entire year. I don't remember the stats off my head, but this guy very rarely throws double-digit picks. He can make some of the greatest throws I've ever seen. The Hail Marys that he's able to produce, that throw in the playoffs against the Cowboys when he hit the tight end on the sideline. This guy just has ice in his veins. The problem with the Packers has nothing to do with Aaron Rodgers. It has completely to do with the surrounding cast. They have not had a running back rush for over 800 yards since 2014. That's a disgrace. They've given this man no support. And to me, I'm not saying he's the greatest because he only has 1 Super Bowl, but in terms of talent, I have never seen a more talented quarterback since I've been watching the sport. The guy can do everything you want in a quarterback. He's A+ in every department. So that is why I have Aaron Rodgers as my number one.
Yeah, physically he's A+ in every. The only thing I would say about Rodgers where he kind of is a weak, where there's a weak spot, almost like an Achilles heel, if you will, is just the leadership. How good of a teammate is he? But he just obviously makes up for it. But yeah, my number one is Aaron Rodgers too. I mean, when you play a season and you have 2 interceptions the whole year, and people on TV, there's segments on TV and on sports radio saying that, is Rodgers like done, or is he starting to trend down? Are we even looking at, are we reading the stats? Are we watching these games?
And that's with no run game. That's with no support.
Yeah. I mean, they have Devontae Adams, who's an absolute stud.
Yeah.
But and you could even make the argument that Rodgers made Adams. But in any case, the Green Bay you just take a look at Aaron Rodgers. What he does with that team, he just consistently carries that team every game, every week, home, away. He does so much for that team. He's just I'm not even a Packer fan, but I always try to catch the Green Bay Packers games when they're not, playing at the same time as the Jets, because I just want to watch Aaron Rodgers play. He's just such a good quarterback, and I just love watching him.
Oh, he's unbelievable. I mean, to me, when you're talking top quarterbacks, he's in the top 4, no doubt about it. I think it's almost a clear top 4 at this point, in my opinion. And I don't go back all the way to the old days in the '60s, but in quarterbacks in the recent NFL, we'll say from '80 on, it's Montana, it's Brady, it's Rodgers, and it's Peyton in any specific order. I think that's most people's consensus top 4 with Breeze in the discussion. And that's probably the consensus top 5. Those 5 quarterbacks, for me anyway. I don't know about you. But but let's get into a little bit of a debate now, what we disliked about each other's list. I'm going to give you 2 quarterbacks on your list that I think they're pretty obvious, where I think me and some people probably agree with you, but the 2 names on your list that you gave me, I think Mahomes is way too low at number 9. Oh, and I recognize why you have him there. He's only played 1 full year. He has a ton of weapons. He plays in a great offensive system. I recognize why you have him there. But he does have a ton of tools, and the numbers that he put up this year were just ridiculous. He had arguably one of the top 3 or 4 statistical regular seasons in the history of the sport. That's why I would have him higher. And the other one that you had there, Garoppolo. I mean, Garoppolo's only made, 8 or 9 starts in his whole career. I find it hard to believe that, for me, that I would have him in the top 6 ahead of a guy like a Ben Roethlisberger, ahead of a guy like a lot of the guys that I have on the list below him, even a Wentz that I didn't even have in my top 10. I'd even have Baker Mayfield ahead of him, but especially coming off an injury. But I do recognize Garoppolo showed a lot of promise. He won his last 5 games with the 49ers, and I know a lot of people are high on him. He does have that winning. People think he's a winner. He comes from Bill Belichick. Bill Belichick was in love with him. Bill Belichick was so pissed when the Patriots got rid of him. So I do recognize why people like him. I just think it's a little premature to have him that high on a top 10 list. So is why I didn't like those 2 names.
Yeah. Do I have an opportunity to have a rebuttal here?
Absolutely. Go ahead.
The reason why I have Patrick Mahomes low, and I'm going to touch on both quarterbacks here, but the reason why I had him at 9 was because I think if you put 10 to 12 quarterbacks with the Kansas City Chiefs, they would put up MVP style numbers. Look at Alex Smith last season.
Okay, I'm gonna let you continue your rebuttal, but I'm gonna debate that. I don't think 10 or 12 quarterbacks. I think they could all have great years on that system. I don't think 10 or 12 quarterbacks are throwing 50 touchdowns. It's only happened once in the history of the sport where a guy threw for 5,000 yards and 50 touchdowns. So I don't think 10 or 12 quarterbacks could throw 50 touchdowns. But that's me. Maybe you believe that. I don't.
Yeah, I'm just saying. I mean, you take a look at the weapons that the Kansas City Chiefs have. And I'm not knocking Patrick Mahomes. I'm not saying he's a bad quarterback. I'm just saying he was just drafted in the perfect scenario where he goes to a stacked team with a great coach, with a great offensive coordinator, with the whole year to sit with no pressure on him, sitting behind the ultimate pro in A. Smith. So Patrick Mahomes, I just feel as though you take Matt Stafford, you put him in the Chiefs, he's going to throw for at least 40 touchdowns, at least.
Okay, and it's a fair argument that you made. But you could make that argument for a lot of great quarterbacks that they were put in the perfect situation. Most great quarterbacks are put in the perfect situation. That's what great organizations do. The 49ers put Joe Montana in the perfect situation. The Brady's put Tom Brady in the perfect situation. And that's how it works. Do I think Stafford is as good or even close to as good as Patrick Mahomes? I do not. Matthew Stafford has had a perfect situation his whole career in terms of throwing the football. He plays in a dome. He had one of the best wide receivers in the history of the sport, Calvin Johnson, to throw to, and he never even came close to putting up these numbers. So I disagree with that. I don't think he put up the same numbers Mahomes puts up.
Yeah, I mean, it's a fair point. I think I don't really put that much stock into actually winning games and winning Super Bowls and stuff like that because I just look at it because football is a team game.
You look more at the physical attributes of the quarterback, I think, which is why you had Garoppolo as high as you did.
And mental as well.
Yeah.
And then with Garoppolo, to put it in perspective, Sammy Watkins, who's the Chiefs' number 2 wide receiver, is better than any single player on the San Francisco 49ers or really any player that Garoppolo has ever played with. To kind of put it in perspective, the 49ers' number 1 wide receiver is Marquise Goodwin, who was respectively the number 4 guy, the fourth option in Buffalo. They have Pierre Garçon, who's just a washed-up shell of himself at this point. I love Garçon when he was with the Colts. He shredded the New York Jets time and time again. He's a tough guy. I love that. But heading into next season, Garoppolo, or basing it like looking at the past 2 seasons, the 49ers' actual roster. I mean, you have Jerick McKinnon. He's like your number 1 running back, and he was hurt all year.
Yeah.
You have no running game, not a very good offensive line, no defense. Nothing at wide receiver. They do have George Kittle, and Kittle's a bright piece, but you can't sit there and say George Kittle is like a top 3 tight end or he's like a real weapon in the National Football League. You pair that with what Garoppolo has done with that. You can make the argument that the 49ers have the worst roster in the league.
Yeah, I mean, offensively, I think it's either them or the Bills, or maybe even your Jets. The Jets don't have a good roster either, if I'm being completely fair. But
I would even say like – Robbie Anderson is better than any player.
Yeah, no, the 49ers. No. You're absolutely right about that. My issue with that selection, like I said, is you talk about Mahomes' lack of experience. He has even less, and you had Mahomes 3 spots lower. The guy's only made 9 starts in his history of his career, and he's coming off an injury. So that's why that's just my honest opinion. That's why I didn't understand why you would have him higher than Mahomes. But I get everybody has their own preference with the quarterbacks.
Yeah, I mean, take Jimmy G, put him in Kansas City, what would happen? Absolute dominance. If you take Patrick Mahomes and put him in San Fran,
no, that's fair.
It would be a highlight show.
Yeah,
for sure. No look passes galore, which is all cool. But would he throw 50 touchdowns? The answer is absolutely
not. Of course not. Whenever you throw 50 touchdowns, some of it obviously has to do with your surrounding team. Like you said, it is a team sport. Aaron Rodgers is the best quarterback on the planet. He threw 25 this year because his team sucks. So, that's – but go ahead. What's your issues with my list?
Number 10, Deshaun Watson. Deshaun Watson, I didn't even think about putting in my honorable mentions. I look at Deshaun Watson. I think he's just a great improv artist. I don't even think he plays within the confines of the system, and I feel like he has a lot of flash and finesse to his game, and it's really attached to his name, like – high draft pick, team trading up for him, national championship, Dabo saying he's Michael Jordan, a lot, win streaks, crazy plays. But, as far as like consistency, I don't really think that Watson is going to be able to continue to just play improv style, running around every play, every like super positive gain that the Texans get, that the Texans have. It's like him running around or like extending the play, which is all, that's good. It's a good quality to have as a quarterback, but how long can you keep that up for? That's not sustainable for 7 years. It's
a fair point. I mean, the reason I like Watson, and you're absolutely right, they basically play a little bit more of an extended college style offense for Watson. They fit it to his strengths. But what I love about him, when you look at his importance to that team, he only started 6 games in his rookie year. They went 3-3 in those games. In the other 10 games, they went 1-9. This year, they went 11-5. So in games since he's been in the league where he has started, they have gone 14-8. In games he has not started, they've gone 1-9. So to me, that shows how valuable he is to that football team and how much he means to winning football games. But I will say you're absolutely right. He is not your traditional quarterback. He's not a guy that you could just put in any system and he's going to be successful. I will agree with that. And I wanted to put Baker Mayfield on this list so bad. You know how much I love Baker Mayfield? And if you would
hold on. Why do you bring up an issue with Garoppolo not playing that much, but Baker Mayfield is completely fine?
Okay, I'm going to tell you why. First off, Baker Mayfield's not coming off an injury. Second off, you look what he did for that Cleveland Browns team. That team went 1-33 the previous 34 games. He comes in, he's 7-7 as the starter. They barely.
Well, it's not the same team though, Chris.
It's a little different, sure, but he's obviously the major addition. I mean, yes, they added Nick Chubb, but he is the major addition. I think most people would say that he was the major addition, and he changed the culture of that football team. I think most people would agree with me on that.
Yeah, but they did. Yeah, I mean, you can't discredit Denzel Ward and Jarvis Landry.
No, of course.
Freddie Kitchens,
but let's put it this way. I think if Baker was on that team last year, they don't go winless. Let's put it that way.
Agreed. 100% agree.
I think he's very valuable to that team. And if you would have asked me over the next 5 years, Baker Mayfield would have been in my top 5 quarterbacks. But just for next year, I couldn't put him in the top 10. And Watson just beat him out for me for that 10th spot.
Yeah, I mean, I look at Watson, I just feel like the stuff that he's asked to do is just extremely simple. I don't think it's sustainable over a long period of time. Yeah, I just feel like he's one of the guys that the media loves, you know. So, and then my other issue with your list, and this could be the Giant fan talking, is leaving Carson Wentz out of the top.
No, I explained why. I explained why. It was the injuries. He's had 2 major injuries, and next year he's going to be coming off of – he didn't finish the year, so he's coming into the year coming off a huge injury. If he was healthy, he'd be in my top 5. I probably would have had him 7 behind Luck, if I'm being completely honest. I probably would have had him at 7. He definitely would have been in my top 10 if it wasn't for injuries. 2 major injuries, and the fact that Foles – if you ask Eagles fans, if Foles plays good in these playoffs, he might take the starter's position. That's not out of the realm of possibility. And you look at how good Foles has played. Foles, you can't even debate it. The last year and a half, Foles has been a better quarterback for that team than Carson Wentz.
Statistically speaking, yes, but
he won them a Super Bowl, and he's the reason they got to the playoffs this year. I would argue if Wentz never got hurt, they wouldn't have made the playoffs. I think Foles played great for that team down the stretch.
Yeah, I think the thing was with Nick Foles is like when he's the quarterback, I feel like the mentality of the team changes to where they have the mentality of, all right, everybody needs to step the hell up, and they kind of dumb down the system where I feel like it's almost like having like it's almost like buying like a Lamborghini, and then like you're forced to like punch it, right? And even though it's not an ideal car to go grocery shopping in, like you have Carson Wentz. You better utilize all of his talent. He could throw it deep. He could throw it on the run. He could run. You know, he could truck over.
They simplify the offense with Foles. I completely agree with you. Wentz is a much better quarterback than Foles, but it seems like Foles fits that team better, and it might be because they simplify the offense. I don't think Foles is a very good quarterback. Well, he's a pretty good quarterback, but he's not on the level of a Carson Wentz, and he's not near a top 10 list. But those are my knocks on Wentz. It's nothing to do with his skill when he's completely healthy. But the 2 major injuries and the fact that Foles has looked better in an Eagles uniform this year specifically, those are my knocks on Wentz.
Yeah, I feel like one of the takeaways that I could kind of take away from, you know, how you put together the list is you focus a lot on the injury history, and I feel like you're not 100% sold on when quarterbacks get major injuries.
Yeah, but I think durability. I think durability is a major part of being a quarterback. And, you know, I love Eli, and to me, that's his best asset. Other than the way that he was able to handle the media and his clutchness, his most important attribute as a quarterback throughout his career was that you knew he was going out there on Sunday. And there's not a lot of quarterbacks that you could say that for historically. Phillip Rivers is another one. Phillip Rivers goes out there every Sunday. Brett Favre was another one. But there's a lot of quarterbacks that get hurt. Tony Romo got hurt all the time. And that's why I would take a quarterback like Eli over a guy like Tony Romo because of that. You don't know. That's a big, important thing that people overlook when it comes to a quarterback.
Yeah, 100% agree. Nobody even of course people say like they throw on the term durability and whatnot, but and I'm not a big Eli Manning fan, but I have to give credit where it's due. That's what he was able to do over the course of, his tenure with the Giants, absolutely insane, where he could just suit up every Sunday, home, away, cold weather, warm weather, January playoff games. He would show up and he would, strap on the helmet and go out and play, and that's underrated quality, because look at Carson Wentz, look at Andrew Luck. They've missed so much time. Look
at almost every quarterback we had on the list. Look at Ben Roethlisberger, who I had at 7. The guy usually misses 3 games a year.
Yeah. And Rodgers hasn't really had some crazy injury, but he's always been like kind of banged up, like a hurt shoulder or hurt ankle. There's always something with Rodgers, and I feel like that's another thing too with Aaron on why he's number 1 on both of our lists, is because he just does so much for that Packer team. And you can make the argument that he's never even at 100%.
Yeah, but anyway, I had such a blast with you doing this. I'm looking forward to doing the next list. I don't know what it's going to be. I'm going to let my subscribers vote on it. It might be running back, wide receiver, defensive end, whatever it is. We are going to do it, and I can't wait for Friday when you come to New York City, and we're going to be streaming the games together on each other's channel. So I'm really looking forward to that. I'm going to put your link in the description so you can sub this man up. You can follow me over to his channel when we stream the games. We're going to alternate Saturday and Sunday. So I'm really looking forward to that. And again, I want to thank you for coming on my channel. I want to wish you Happy New Year's.
Yeah, man. Happy New Year's to you and everybody watching. Just want to say thanks for having me on. Can't wait to, do this series continuously. It's going to be fun, especially diving into certain positions as well. Really looking forward to it. And then, of course, the trip coming up. Going to be a crazy ride, but looking forward to it, man.
All right, man. I'll see you later.
Peace, man.